Hello everybody. So this is a video to go over some things before you have your homework 4. So far I think things have been going pretty well. One thing I wanted to touch base on before we start about the minor keys is how things should be beamed. Some people are confused because they think that the note has to be on the same note in order to be beamed. It can be on different notes in order to be beamed. So if you see here, we're in treble clef. I have a B and an A. These are beamed together because of how the beats are divided. So anything that is within one beat group gets beamed together. If you look here, there's an 8th note, a 16th, and another 16th. It's much easier if you beam them together to look like this. So all of these together equal one beat, and that is why they're beamed together. Even though they're on different notes, they're still beamed. So when you are beaming things, just make sure that if it's 16th notes, that they have 2 beams at the top, and 8th notes have 1 beam. Typical beamings in 4/4 time are 4 16th notes, 2 8th notes, and an 8th and 2 16ths. So anytime you have anything like this, that should be beamed. For 6/8 time, it's a little bit different. The only thing you're really going to come across is that they're beamed based on 3 8th notes. So everything goes according to 3 beats instead of 1 beat. And these are 3 beats because in 6/8 time, remember, the 8th note gets 1 beat. So that's why it's 3 beats, and everything is beamed to 3 beats. Now moving on, let's talk about some things about this scale. So next week we're going to talk more about this scale, but this week what I do want you to know is these names involved in the scale. So basically with every scale, major and minor, you have a tonic. Your tonic is pretty much the foundation of a song. It's the note that you always go back to, that you resolve to. Often we hear it in pop music. So your tonic is like your bass note. That is what the key is named after. So for example, since we have no flats or sharps, this would be C major. And so the tonic is C, which is also the name of the key. So your tonic is going to be the same as the name of the key. Then an easy way to remember these is that super is when you're going above and sub is when you're going below. So since this is the next step above, it's called supertonic. Then we have mediant, which means that it's the 3rd scale degree. And then we have subdominant because it comes before the dominant. Then we have submediant, leading tone, and tonic again. So whenever you have a scale, you're going to have 2 tonics that are going to be an octave apart, and an octave means that it's 8 steps apart. So it's the same note, it's just in a different register. This C here is different from this C here, which the C is actually middle C. So the thing that you want to memorize is your tonic, mediant, and dominant, and then the rest of them you can pretty much get just by using that rule that if it comes after, it's super, if it comes before, it's sub. The submediant is a little bit different because after submediant doesn't come mediant. Submediant really has to deal with the interval relationship between tonic and the mediant. So mediant means that it's a 1/3 away. So this mediant is a 1/3 away. This submediant is a 1/3 away from the tonic. So that's why that's placed the way it is. Leading tone is something you really need to know for next week, so I'm going to review over it much more next week. But basically the leading tone is what leads us back to the tonic. And so it's always going to be the 7th scale degree. So when we're talking about scale degrees, there's technically 8 scale degrees for each scale. So here we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 would be the tonic in the other register. So you need to know the relationship between scale degree and the name for your next homework. Now real briefly, let's talk about the minor keys. So we've studied major keys. A big thing that'll be useful to you is the circle of fifths. Oftentimes for these quizzes, all you'll have to do is really have the circle of fifths next to you, and that'll give you the answers for a lot of things. But I would just like you to know where those answers come from as far as learning purposes go. So an easy way to figure out what the minor key of something is you go down 3 half steps from what the major key is. So let's say that we are in C major. If I wanted to figure out what the minor was of C major, I would go down 3 half steps. This is why I drew the piano and why you should have a piano around you when you're trying to figure out these things. So we go 1, 2, 3. We land on the A note. So the name of the minor key is going to be A minor. Let's use a different example. Let's say that I have 2 sharps. So 2 sharps means that we're in D major. So I'm going to go to the D key on the piano, and I'm going to go down 3 half steps. So 1, 2, 3. That means that this is B minor. And remember that minor keys always use the lowercase letter name, and that's because we want to be able to tell the difference between major and minor. Minor is often lowercase because it's showing that it's sad. The difference between a major and minor song is that a major song is very happy and it's bright, and a minor song is sad and darker. So they use the lowercase. And so that's one of the differences between major and minor, is this sad against happy. Another difference is that their tonics are going to be different. So, talking about the tonic, that's the first note of the scale. So the first note of a B minor scale would be B, because remember the tonic is whatever the name of the key is. This could also be D major, this key signature, because it's got 2 sharps. So we would say that the tonic of D major is D. So we have 2 different tonics. We have B being a tonic and D being a tonic for D major. And then another difference is just the difference between half steps and whole steps is going to be different for the different keys. I'm going to go over that more next week, but that is something that'll be on your homework. Okay, so next I want you to know the difference between relative and parallel minors. Relative minor has to deal with if it has the same key signature. So relative equals same key signature. And parallel means that it has the same key name. Okay, so signature, we're talking about the symbols here next to the clef, right? When we're talking about key name, we're saying D major. That's the name of the key. So, for instance, in D major, the relative major is B minor because it shares the same key signature. The parallel minor would be D minor because that's the same name as D major. So when we're talking about parallel minors, you know that your key signature is going to be different. So let's figure out what the key signature of D minor would be. In order to do that, you just go the opposite direction of figuring out what the minor was. So to figure out the minor, we went down 3 half steps. In order to figure out the major of this minor, we have to go up 3 half steps. So 1, 2, 3. F major is equal to D minor. So we're going to show that here. And see how they're two different key signatures, but they have the same name, just one is minor and one is major. This is parallel, this is relative. Also with parallel, that means that they're going to have the same tonic, so the same starting note, which would be D. I think that's all that you need to know for your homework 4. Please email me if you have any questions.